opposition leader Tundu Lissu was arrested.
Tensions are rising in Tanzania as opposition leaders face mounting pressure ahead of the country's general elections.
Simple things we ask IMF to do.
In Washington, D.C., members of the Tanzanian Diaspora gathered outside the International Monetary Fund and World Bank to protest what they call a brutal crackdown on democracy in their homeland. In front of the IMF and World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C., Tanzanian voices rang out, not in celebration, but in protest. Dozens of Tanzanian expatriates have taken to the streets, urging international institutions to reconsider funding Tanzania's government. The protest comes amid allegations of political repression, unjust arrests, and abuse of the rule of law by the ruling CCM party under President Samia Suluhu Hassan. The protesters are especially concerned about opposition leader Tundu Lissu, who has been charged with treason, a charge that carries a possible life sentence if convicted. We ask Libe, one of the organizers of the protest, the reason for the protests in front of the IMF.
We choose this location, IMF, because IMF is a development partner with Tanzania, and we see that there are some violations of human rights, democracy, and rule of law, which are in contrary or against the principles of IMF. So we are here just to tell IMF that the money you're giving to these people, they don't do what they're supposed to do. They violate human rights. They use that money to pay police overtime, like the other day on April 24th when Tundu Lissu had to appear in court, but he didn't. Police were paid overtime just to brutalize citizens. So we are here just to tell IMF, please do not sponsor these dictators.
On what they were hoping to achieve through this protest, Libe said,
the end result is IMF to hear us, to understand that we, as a Tanzanian diaspora, most of us work in this country. We pay taxes, and we don't want our taxes money to be sent to dictators. So we're asking IMF to investigate, to do forensic audit with the money they're giving Tanzanians, Tanzanian government, just to do forensic audit. If the money they give, do they do what they're supposed to do? And if there are any human rights violations, if there are corruptions, like I just said, there's a document which has been leaked. Some government official spends almost 1 billion shillings, and these people don't even make $40,000 a year. So we want IMF to investigate the money they give to Tanzania and to reassess the conditions and if Tanzanian government really abide to human rights and rule of law.
The arrest has drawn international condemnation. The European Union Parliament recently passed a resolution condemning the arrest of Tundu Lissu and other opposition figures, urging the Tanzanian government to immediately release him and respect democratic freedoms.
International organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, or the International Democracy Union have condemned Lissu's arrest, with many calls for his release and condemnation of the attacks on political freedoms and human rights. The EU contributes hundreds of millions of euros to Tanzania through various initiatives. We have to be very clear that any European cooperation investment has to be tied to progress in the areas of the rule of law and human rights. The European Commission must closely monitor developments, and especially Tundu's trial.
When asked about evidence, they have alleged that the Tanzanian government is violating the rule of law. Libe had this to say.
The very, very recent proof and example is April 24th, when Honorable Tundu Lissu had to appear in court. Police officers abducted civilians at the court premises. put them in on their cars, took them to unknown places, 10th of Tanzanians, and tortured them, broke their legs, broke their hands, their arms, and the worst, broke their spinal cord. We have that in the documentation. And that has been reported in the BBC, reported in Al Jazeera, reported in CNN, in all media. So these are clear violations of human rights. And I don't think United States and IMF should deal with these kinds of human violations. And they should never, ever sponsor or give finance or funds to such kind of government.
The Chadema Party has announced a boycott of the upcoming election, citing the government's refusal to reform electoral laws, which they say overwhelmingly benefit the ruling CCM party. Critics argue the current climate is far from free and fair. The pressure is mounting both at home and abroad. Whether these voices in Washington will be heard by policymakers remains to be seen. We reached out to the Tanzanian embassy in Washington, D.C. for comment on these allegations, but have not yet received a response. However, our invitation to speak on these matters remains open.
We want to finance people who embrace democracy.
Yes.